Hey, welcome back to the CashPT Lunch Hour podcast. This is your host, Aaron LeBauer, and today my special guest is CJ Depalma, or the Movement Doctor. CJ is a physical therapist. He does a lot of CrossFit. He works out, but he also has a cash practice, and I've been watching him build his practice for the last few years. And CJ was also a student who started a business. And so a lot of people always say students can't start businesses. Students need 5 years. So I want to bring CJ on as one of many people who I know and have worked with, who not only started business out of school, but are crushing it. Because I'm not that special. Just because I did it doesn't mean everyone else can't do it. You can too. So thank you, CJ, for being here. I really appreciate you coming on the show. So tell me, I want to go back and just why did you even start to be a physical therapist? Like, what is that part of your story?
So I was, exercise has been like a staple in my life for a real long time. Bodybuilding and like high levels of fitness and sports performance and things like that. And so I was a strength coach. I was an intern volunteer when I was graduating college and did a rotation. And the goal was to in the strength world, you're an intern, then you become a GA. The GA becomes an assistant at a small school. Then you usually get an assistant at a bigger school. Then head coach, small school, big school, and then there's a flow, right? And then potentially pro life. Well, I was listening to we were at a big conference. I was listening to the GAs, and they got their first assistant job, and they were talking their pay, and it was like 26. And I thought to myself, we're like in the van, and I was like, dollars an hour, and because I was a personal trainer at the time as well, and I made, I didn't make great money, but I made more than 26 grand a year doing personal training. And I was like, a strength coach at a football school can be a 4,000 hour work year. Easy. Wow. Right. So, you're talking 80 hours a week all the time, plus travel, et cetera. So I was like, well, I don't know if that's really what I want to do, because I'm kind of a family guy. And, I do live for work, and that, as you can see, this is part of my office, but, so I decided, I was like, okay, well, how can I still be in the performance world? And, I was like, well, my wife introduced me to some people, and they had the same dreams in college, and they went to PT, and they didn't go that route, but they kind of talked me to going to PT school, and the avenues that would open up were kind of the same. So I decided to, and that was kind of how I started deciding to go to PT school. And then, took a ton of classes that summer. I graduated, and I hadn't prepared to go to school yet. And I took a ton of classes, like 21 hours in summer, which was insane, and made it on time and got accepted to a couple schools.
Awesome. And was this like right after undergrad, or you spent a few years in between, it sounds like?
No, this was like, I was an intern in 12. I graduated in 12. I was interning the summer before, or that summer, and, summer of 11. And by like the end of the fall was when I decided. So classes for spring of 12 were already set. I couldn't take any more. So to apply within the, applications open July 1st. Well, I had to have X amount of classes done by the summer, and I needed like 8 classes to meet requirements, because my school, it was an exercise degree, but we just didn't have any of the classes that I needed for PT. Right. So like of the 14 class requirements, I had to take 8 in like a semester and a half. So, so it was right away. And because I knew I didn't want to wait a whole nother year, there was nothing really for me to do during that time. So I was like, well, let's just make it happen. And it's a lot of sleepless nights for sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I didn't go to PT school in California because I was going to have to take 10 prerequisites. And so it took me a few more years. We moved to North Carolina, and all I had to take were 2 more.
Right.
It's like just the school and location, but it sounded like you knew kind of, so you're from Florida, right? Yep. What city in Florida?
I was born in Orlando, but I live in Pensacola now.
Okay. So did you go to PT school in Florida?
Yep. I went to Florida International in Miami.
Okay. So you probably knew okay, I want to be here in Florida. I've got 2 or 3 of the schools that I want to go to. Or were you, it didn't.
Yeah, I applied out of state, and I applied in state. Obviously I really wanted to go to, I think UCF, and Miami was my number one. Yeah. Because I'm at Kane. I've been at Kane for a long time.
Yeah.
And, but they don't accept state college requirements or prereqs. So who knew? It doesn't say it anywhere. Right. So I was pretty upset. So FIU accepted me, and it was, we'll say they bidded me pretty well. And it, we'll just say I got through school. School was fine. I got a degree, And,
Right.
I wouldn't say that it was like the greatest experience, but it was good enough, and it opened doors.
Right. It got you where you wanted to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So CJ, did you know when you were in PT school that you were going to open a business?
I always knew I was eventually, right? I
Mm-hmm.
had this like envisionment of like a massive like performance gym with a clinic inside and all these things. And, which is the same, I think that every ortho preferred, like sports kid going into PT school thinks is going to happen. And I definitely think it can, but that kind of like remolded itself when we looked at overheads and the concepts of opening a business and, and like, are more loans appropriate to come right out of school and take more, right? So I started treating CrossFit athletes while I was in school
Mm-hmm.
as like kind of favors and really, really reduced like trading gym membership, right? At
Right.
a really good gym in Miami. And then I knew I wanted to work with CrossFitters. And I learned from a lot of really good coaches from the performance side. And in CrossFit, it's very, I'll say it's very cult minded and, like it's hard to gain trust when you're not in the sphere, right?
Right.
So I just happen to be a pretty decent CrossFitter. And then I know a lot about coaching CrossFit as well. So I kind of just molded that. And that's kind of how the movement doctor started to take face. And yeah, so in school, yeah, I would say I knew, but as
Mm-hmm.
far as like what it looks like now, it's a 180 compared to like even when I graduated school, like my practice style and how I treat patients and what I'm doing compared to
Right.
what I came out of school thinking I was going to do.
Yeah. And so you graduated, when did you graduate? About 5-6 years
16,
ago? 16?
4, yep, 2016.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah,
August.
right on. And you started your business like pretty much right out of school. Did you start
Yep.
the movement doctor while you were in school?
No, well, so I like started I guess like started figuring out what it was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like I said, I was treating people,
Yeah.
it was like favors and on the side and things like that. Um, don't tell the Florida board, right?
I won't.
Um, um, so, uh, so yeah, so I mean, it was like a process, and I graduated in August, took a month of nothing, got my CSCS, and then I started studying for boards, and I passed boards. We were in Orlando, and I started working for a clinic like part-time as a temp,
Mm-hmm.
and then got my license and kept working part-time, and that lasted about 2 more weeks. And I was like, nah, this is just not for me. So had an opportunity. The guys at Mako Athletics here in Pensacola are good friends of mine,
Yeah.
having a lot of extra space, and they're like, do you want to open up? And I was like, obviously, this is my wife's home. This is where I went to undergrad. And so it was just our plan was kind of like shifted up 3 years, because I was like, well, let's start the business in Orlando and see how it goes, and I'll do like a part-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was August, and we were having a good old time on Panama City Beach for a bachelor party, and they're like, hey, do you want to open up a business? And I was like, obviously. And they're like, well, the space is yours whenever you're ready. So I passed boards, et cetera. And me and my wife decided that it was time to
Yeah.
make the move, and moved up here almost overnight, right before Thanksgiving of 16, and just
Wow.
figured out how to run. I didn't know anything. I think that was when I bought the course from you, and G was on my side, and I was
Mm-hmm.
chatting with Greg a lot, and trying to figure out how to start a business. Ironically, it's really easy to start a PT clinic. It's not very
Right.
hard at all. Fun fact, in case anyone was wondering, it's really simple. So yeah, so that's kind of the start of it, and yeah, it was pretty
Awesome.
yeah.
Was there was there a pivotal moment where was it just the fact that these guys said, hey, here's the opportunity and it's there for you? Or was there something else that happened that like got you ready for that pushed you towards that moment where you said, hey, I can make this decision with clarity?
So a couple things. The kind of like the outside knowledge I had of CrossFit from a performance standpoint, I
Mm-hmm.
knew was going to set me apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I really hated working in the clinics that I was in Orlando. I mean,
Yeah.
I hated it, and the money wasn't good. It's not all about money, and I can attest that I didn't make much for a long time.
Right.
But I was in a predominantly Spanish speaking clinic. I don't speak Spanish. There was a lot of things going on. I just didn't feel comfortable with the way I was treating, like or being treated and being required to treat. And I'm just really bad at taking orders from other people. It just was never a skill that I developed really well.
Yeah.
And so I talked to my wife and I was like, hey, we can stay through the winter here and make a little bit of money. And, because we finally weren't living off loan money for 5 minutes. And I was like, or I can leave early and we can just go up to Pensacola and I can figure out how to start this thing and we can just get the ball rolling. Lived with her mom and my mother-in-law and, in an apartment for a while and just made it happen.
Yeah. Was there a time in which your wife ever said, this isn't worth it, or we should do something different?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Cause she was working during the first bit. Right. And, and we never, there was a lot of like long nights for sure, trying to figure out what to do. It's funny. Most of the time it was spent like figuring out how to open a business, realized that none of it was needed, and it was a little simple, but no, I don't think so. There's always like that conversation still comes up because running a business it never turns off. Right. And that's the hardest part. But at the same time, I'm sitting in my house right now and, my revenue hasn't dipped too much and I haven't treated a patient in person in 2 weeks. Right. So it's has its ups and downs for sure. But I would say the same mindset still stands on her look in the business as far as like, is this worth it or whatever? And it's like, well, sometimes it's more stressful, but most of the time it's really not. And it's a lot, it's a lot more work, but it's a lot more reward at the same time.
Is she involved at all in your business or just more of like you chat with her every once in a while about it?
Absolutely not. We tried that. It lasted like 24 hours. And I was like, hey, can you do the books? Nope.
Right.
Not even close. Hey, can you, do some, I don't know, like clerical work? Nope. Not even slightly.
Yeah. Awesome. Did you encounter any resistance to you opening a business from anybody?
Every single person, besides you and Greg, probably and besides the CrossFitters that I knew, my friends,
right.
Even most of my friends, because they're like, nah, it's not going to work. No one's going to pay cash to come see a PT and blah, blah, blah. And local PTs, that I looked up to just like scoffed at me and they're, just like, almost like, this is ridiculous. You'll never make anything. And it's like, well, maybe, but I just couldn't, I just don't like the multiple patients at a time. I just don't like that model. So even if this was like not that successful, all I needed was to like make face value to like live. And I was totally content with that. And I've been very fortunate to be able to grow that even more. So yeah, everyone in the realm of PT, for sure doubted the concept of treating just CrossFitters, which I don't do, by the way. It just kind of seems like that. And charging a cash pay, especially in Pensacola. Pensacola's economic face is a little weak, I guess you could say. Not a very strong economic push here. It's getting better, which is great for business. But when I got here, it was, $100 a session is like not too many people in the town can afford that. So, so it was definitely a challenge.
Yeah. So starting the business wasn't the hard part. What was the hard part?
I think with every business is, marketing. But it was funny, at first the marketing was really easy.
Yeah.
As far, I posted, so what I did my whole first year, I posted Instagram every day, one post a day, whatever it was, the whole loud music, like the body part anatomy image and like the guy moving really fast doing a bench press, and that was like, so it's funny. I started doing all of that with like, Sam Spinelli and strength therapist, right? And like all those guys that now have like hundreds of thousands of followers. My account didn't quite take off as bad or as fast. I think I'm at like 13 or 14,000 or something like that. So they caught the wind and I didn't, but we all started doing the exact same thing. And then what I did was because I knew that I could market to CrossFitters very well because I knew CrossFit extremely well from a performance side. And I know the things that they deal with and the injuries that they occur and accrue. And so I went to every gym every week, right? I was at a gym a week doing free sessions for months and months and months, right? And then I started charging $20 here, $20 there for very like, spot treatments and things like that. And then then it just kind of grew, right? And I didn't spend money in marketing until well after the first year, but it's just getting, getting a patient load. And, but yeah, so I would say that was probably the hardest at first, just marketing and getting your name out there. Reaching the non-CrossFit crowd has definitely been the hardest part. Where we are, there's a lot of Medicare and TRICARE. There's a lot of big military towns. So everyone really has good insurance here. Not really struggling people that have like $75 copays or something like that. So there's not a lot of push for people to seek care. But those that do, are the clients that we desire, those who want to get better and those who are really self-motivated and things like that. So really working towards finding those people has probably been the hardest part, but something that we've had success at.
Yeah. What's the, if kind of like hitting the ground and boots on the ground strategy of just going out and giving a lot at first was what was working. Is there anything different that's working now or working better now?
Well, I just don't have time to do that whatsoever now. There's not even close. So, I mean, I do Google, I use Google ads now, and my business has shifted so much that I don't worry so much about the clinical side of like growing a patient load, because I can't manage more than I have now because of what I am currently doing, which is online coaching and programming for another company that I run a division of their company. It's called WOD Rep. Some people that are in the CrossFit world might know it. Basically, we create courses, how to do a muscle up, how to do pull-ups, how to do handstand push-ups, etc. So I run the one-on-one division. So I personally have about 30 athletes, and then my coaches under me all have athletes as well. I have 2 performance coaches, and then I have 1 physical therapist as well under me in the system. So we all program kind of together and work with athletes together. So that's the majority of my time and the majority of my focus.
Wow, that's awesome. So are you guys doing therapy or just like performance training?
Yeah, so
and programming?
it's both. So the performance coaches obviously only do performance. I mean, their athletes go through injuries, which just like every CrossFitter does. And when they do, I help them kind of make adjustments based on the injuries, and we have lots of Zoom calls with athletes. But it started with rehab, and then it kind of progressed. So I was like upsells and programs, and it was more of like just rehab programming. Athletes struggling with a wrist injury and hasn't been able to clean for 6 months. How do we get him back? Right. It's okay. Well, let me program CrossFit for them to fit a rehab need that they want. But I have a dual, I would say like a dual approach is like I can be their coach and performance coach as well as I can help them with their rehab. So that's kind of how it started, and it just built out from there. And then over time, the majority of my athletes are performance driven now. And then, like I said, I have a PT who takes most of the rehab athletes. And then currently I don't take any more athletes. I'm way too slammed. And so, all new athletes that come in will go to the other coaches.
That's cool. So how's that set up? So some of these other guys started the WOD Rep, and are these people that you knew through CrossFit, or how'd you get in touch with them? And
yeah, so WOD Rep was started at Mako, and the gym that my clinic is at. And his name is Ben Jawalski, and he had just left. His wife is a helo pilot for the Navy, and he had just left to Japan. And so they had a couple courses out already. And I just, we were doing a lot of the same online stuff and trying to give a lot of information away. And the owners of the gym were like, hey, you need to meet Ben. So we had like a Zoom call like this, and I started creating content for them. And then it just kind of evolved into what it is. And that's kind of like, we're in like a partnership with that side of the company.
Yeah. Awesome. And so do you have some kind of ownership, or are you just kind of like working per?
Yeah. So it's like a revenue split, but it's a partnership. I mean, it is, I would say it's very much an ownership for sure.
Yeah. So the more you put in, the more you get out.
100%.
Yeah. That's all, because it sounds like from what you're telling me before, you probably wouldn't put in that much effort to something that if you weren't going to get much out of it, or or have control or ownership of some piece of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I am the same way as like far as, the people I pay is, I reward a lot of hard work and something like that, programming is very much you can reach a point where like you're not profitable because of how much work you have, if you're doing like an hourly or something like that. So So it works out well. The split is very fair. And then I help, do a lot of I still do a lot of other things within the program for bigger masses and help other athletes, that aren't. So it's a very much a partnership within that company.
That's awesome. So why is that something for you that you're like, it sounds like you're all in on? It's using most of your time versus even just going out and starting your own thing, like something different. Like, what are the benefits that you've got from, like, why did you choose to work with these guys doing WOD Prep versus being like, oh, that's a great idea, let me go do my own thing?
Yeah,
right?
Sure. So a couple reasons, right? One, I talked to Greg about this a lot, and because there was like this big point where I had to make a decision, because at first it was just the side hustle, right? And the side hustle turned into more financially was about the same, but as far as time, it was taking up a lot more and more and more and more and more. And one of my number one goal of the movement doctor working with WOD Prep is I want to affect the most people, right? If you look at my social media pages, the only thing I post on there is educational stuff. Like I don't try and promote business through my social media. I probably should, but I don't, right? And so it's all just educational, right? And it's usually just debunking myths across the board, and like, have you been told this? Well, here's this, and it's this, and this, right? It's just educational. And now through this, whole quarantine thing, right? It's just workouts, right? Do this workout. It's really easy, simple, etc. So all I want to do is affect the most people. Well, WOD Prep has an 85,000 person email list.
Wow.
So, so I can affect the most people, right? And I do course creation there, right? Well, I can create courses for myself, and again, with Smart Success and that whole mastermind, that's what they do. That's what they teach, right? Well, 10% or 30% of 85,000 people reached is a lot more than 100% of maybe 100 to maybe 1,000 people reached. Right. So I knew my opportunity to reach and affect more people was larger with WOD Prep. And Ben, the owner, he doesn't know PT, he knows CrossFit, okay, but he understands that, the direction, like he doesn't make me do a certain thing. So it's still well within like my own desires of the direction I want to go. Right. And he believes in me and my message, right? This whole mentality and independent mindset message that I push through the movement doctor. We are now able to push that through WOD Prep and on a much, much, much bigger scale. And I love that. And so that was kind of like why we made this shift, or I made this shift, because I could affect more people. Right. That was the goal. That's the overall goal of all of it.
Yeah. That's so awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I think the big question that I've been asking myself and trying to help other people see is like, how do we affect even more people? And how do you put your mission inside of someone else's mission, or make my mission big enough so other people feel like they want to fit? And it sounds like what your mission is fits within what WOD Prep is already doing.
Right.
And they've given you an avenue basically just to say, hey, just go for whatever it is. Right. Dude, That's dope. That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, tell me, what is the next 3 to 5 years look like? Like, what is your ultimate goal? Do you have a number of people you want to affect, or something for yourself? Where do you see this all going?
Yeah. So we have we did some OKRs. You know what that is? Right. So give me 1 second. So it's a book called Turning Pro. Okay. Basically, it's how to effectively create. This one is for a lot of time management stuff, right? Yeah. So this one's pretty good. And then our book, okay, we read it as a company, and let me see if I can get the name of it. Find this in my Amazon. Basically, it's how to create your best 3 to 5 year plan, and going down from here's your 5 year, and working it's called the Vivid Vision. That's it. Okay. Sorry. Vivid Vision, right? A remarkable tool. And we create this Vivid Vision and we work our way down, right? So we've kind of done this, and I have 2 avenues, right? I have my WOD Prep avenue and I have my movement doctor avenue. Well, my movement doctor, my goal is to grow it. I want to grow it within the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way I can do that, the only way, is I need another therapist, right? And I've had some opportunities come up, and timing just wasn't great, and so they kind of fell through. So it's just kind of a waiting game with that. There's no rush there, but for me to grow the company in Pensacola as a brick and mortar, I need another therapist to treat, because I can only treat Tuesday. I only treat Tuesdays and Thursdays, and even then, most of my treatments are personal training, right? Because my marketing, I don't market that much. I have a minimal marketing in Google, just enough to spend the marketing and have a little bit of cash flow coming in on that side. But most of my weeklies are personal training clients that I've had for a long time, that started as injury, and over time, it was like, hey, you can stay with wellness or whatever, and then they've just kind of stayed over, almost the entirety of the movement doctor now. And so the movement doctor's 3 to 5 is I want to have a clinic, right? I want to have a standalone, or kind of a little bit different of a setup than what I have with the gym now. Something more my own, a little bit bigger, and have another therapist in there. And then with WOD Prep, the goal is to grow the one-on-ones. I want to continue to grow my coaches roster. I want all my coaches to have 30 to 50 athletes at that point, with what our revenue, or what our cost is per athlete. It is something that's a full-time job at that point. And that is a very good salary at that point. So that's my goal for all of my coaches. My goal is to continue to whittle down my athlete roster. We do course creation. I have courses that are in development stage that we'll launch with WOD Prep. And then I think our overall goal kind of with WOD Prep is to do basically daily programming that we sell, eventually on like a mass scale.
Like to CrossFit gyms.
Yeah, to individual athletes. Yep.
Yeah.
So those are like the avenues. I'm very content with where we are now. If it stays like this, we're fine. If it, once we get through this, it's so weird right now, right? So everything's kind of put on hold, but once we get through, this and everyone is good and people start spending money again, or we have a couple courses that we'll launch soon, and then hopefully people will want to start getting ready for the next CrossFit season, which means that our rosters will grow.
Right. Awesome, man. So, well, just for everyone listening, it's March, was it the 30th today? 31st, 2020. Just so in case you're listening to this a year or two down the road. So CJ, the 2 follow-up questions to that is, what would you do if you had more time? Like, let's say you got rid of you got a therapist to treat all your patients. You got all your personal training clients or people through WOD Prep onto your coaches rosters. What would you then do?
I'd hang out with my dog more. I don't know. No, content creation for sure. Yeah. That's what I would continue doing. Create more courses. Yeah. I don't ever foresee, I would never be the fact of like, I wouldn't treat, I love treating. It would never be, I wouldn't program, because I love programming and I love coaching remotely. I mean, I love both of them equally as much. The remote thing has given me a little bit more of this, like, I would say glamour facade. I get to travel with my athletes, and the athletes that I have are well off, and they fly me out to work with them and things like that. So that's really cool, right? I would never want to give that up. That's like pretty cool. I've got to travel to South America, to, across the country multiple times. And I would never want to give that kind of stuff up, so I'd still have some of that, but I think it would go to, just more development, right? A lot more time in front of the camera, creating courses or creating content to create more subscribers. There's two things that create a good online business, right? Is content to get more reach, right? To get more emails, right? Or content to sell a course, right? And I mean, if you create more courses, so you're saying, so say you have 100,000 people, you have 10 courses, you sell X amount. Well, if you make 10 more courses to the same 100,000 people, you're going to make more money, right? Well, if you have 10 courses and you gain more email lists, you're going to make more money, right? Because some of those new people are going to buy more courses, right? So, but if you grow both of them, right, then we have, this, progressive growth, right? And that's kind of what we want to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it would look like. You know, I can always do better with time and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably what it would look like from a business standpoint.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, now, and like kind of the other piece is now that we have more time because we're in the middle of the
Right.
COVID-19 bizarro reality.
Exactly.
Right. You've got more time. What are you doing right now? Is it just more content, or is there something specific that you're focusing on in the next few weeks to make sure that your businesses continue to move forward?
Yeah. You know, so I just, I got, talked to my marketing girl, and we're going to make a little push I wrote a blog for some telehealth stuff, and we're going to make a push for that, for some Google ads, and see if that does anything over a couple of weeks. If it doesn't, then we'll pull it. You know, kind of want to minimize expenses right now. But if you know, I have some reach or some outreach for telehealth, evals and treatments and things like that, then we'll go that route. But as far as business as usual, I'm still pretty much the same. None of my remote athletes have quit. I haven't lost any business in that direction. We have some online groups that I kind of help manage, so that's upticked. So I'm doing that a little bit more, and then we have, you know, within WOD Prep, we're kind of working as a team to create some form of like revenue growth, right? You know, people stopped pretty much like overnight, stopped spending money. So we want to try and, you know, give them everything we can, you know, and help with the situation as well. But the company is still a company that needs, you know, that needs revenue. So we're trying to come up with something that's very helpful to the community, as well as, you know, keep people in their job, you know? So, so that's kind of where it is now. And then also I am spending a lot of time with my wife, which is nice.
Right. That's cool.
Yep.
Awesome. So, if someone out there is listening and they want to help more people, like what's something they could do right now that you've been successful with in reaching more people, whether it's through Instagram, social media, through your courses? Like what are some of whether it's the actions they can take or the types of content that?
Yeah. As far as like type of content, I don't think there's any right or wrong. Everyone, you know, if anyone listening knows who I am, knows I'm pretty biased in my treatment styles and what I believe is right or wrong. But as far as like how you market to people, you know, there's no right or wrong. Just do it really constant, you know, and that was like what helped me a lot at first. You know, don't be afraid to just get in front of the camera every day and do something, and get it on YouTube, get it on Instagram, get it on Facebook, every day. Right. And, you know, pick an avenue, find a niche, find something that you really want to specialize in, or be focused in at least. And I think that's really important for a lot of people that are going to use social media as your engine for your business. Is you need a niche, right? And that's really important. Or you need a personality, or you need something that's going to sort of set you apart. And now the market's so saturated, but it's still, you know, patience. And you know, I don't like to say patience. I like to say endurance. I think endurance is the best way to describe of like how social media can help your page. And you know, consistency over a long period of time. Everyone has ambition, but most people don't have endurance, right? And that's the key. And that's where it is. It's like hammer it down every day, in and out, you know. And I'm not saying you have to work 23 hours a day. It's not this Gary V mindset, you know, he does his thing, but consistency, find your direction and find your voice and your message, right? And just hammer it.
Yeah. So when you started sharing on Instagram, did you get to was there a point at which you actually, because I know you were saying you've got your opinions on how treatment should be, right? Was there a point at which, even before, you weren't really sharing exactly what you believed, you were sharing what you thought people would believe? You just went 100%. Straight for it.
Yeah. And that was, and it probably was what I would say like stunted potentially the growth. You know, social media is about being polarizing.
Yeah.
It is. Black and white's hard. This is wrong. This is right. But unfortunately, you know, a lot of what this is right is very gray. It might be right. It might be right for you, or it depends, right? Ugh. Yeah. But it's very true, you know, and in a great way to get people to follow you is to demonize other things. And we try not to do that. And it's true though. It's so true. The biggest accounts are like, If you do a barbell high pull, you're going to impinge your shoulder. What the fuck does that even mean? Sorry. What does that even mean? Why
You can
is that?
curse.
Why is
You're
that a
not the
thing?
worst mouth on the show.
It's like, what does that even mean? Why do you have to demonize it? Why? Because it gets a million views on YouTube.
Right.
Right. It's like, oh man, what's the shoulder exercise that I'm doing wrong? You're probably not doing it wrong. Maybe you're doing it too often, or maybe it's too heavy, or, maybe you just weren't ready to do it yet, but you probably weren't doing it wrong. Right. But that doesn't sell. That's not cool.
Right.
Like,
It's interesting. Some of the most powerful people are polarizing without putting other people down.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, I've got my opinion, but I'm not doing it at the expense of someone else.
Yeah. It's a tough thing. It's tough to be polarizing and polarizingly positive.
Right.
It's tough because if you're polar, then you're on the opposite side of something.
Right.
Right. And sometimes it's appropriate. I would say I'm very polar in the sense of, certain treatment avenues I don't think should be, but I try not to, be really rude about it. But the answer, so, you're polar to like should you or should you not do something? But on the flip side of that, it's like, what should you do? And it's like, probably just a little bit of something and a little bit of another thing. And it's probably going to be okay.
Right.
No one likes the answer that you're probably just going to get better.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing that I've found treating patients is what they really want is a definitive answer to know that there's a problem.
Yep.
When it's like the best I can ever do is sometimes not name a problem or give them a medical diagnosis, which is what they really want, because that's not even what's happening. But it's like they want that so bad that they're going to keep going until they find it.
Right.
Yep. So how do you deal with that with your patients and even with the people that you do the online coaching with?
So the online thing is, I would say it's even a little bit easier because I see them every day and I talk to them every day, and it's really good, but as far as in person, it's very much like a slow drip sometimes, or sometimes I'm like, they come in and they're like, I got flat feet, I sit too much and my shoulders are rounded. And I just slam them with information. I'm like, no, stop it. And, but other times it's just like this slow drip of, basically, well, maybe, right. And just talking about, usually I try and create an analogy that's very, that resonates well with them. I think the biggest goal for a lot of PTs is being able to read people and like what's going to work and what's not, and getting on their level of concern. And if they have really, really strong beliefs, you don't want to blast them and, shoot them in the gut. But slowly introducing them into the concept of like, hey, maybe it's not this black and white. Maybe your injury 14 years ago isn't still causing your foot pain or your back pain, right? Maybe there's other things. And so we try and educate, and I think it just boils down to that, right? And that's my whole goal, is just to educate those and to think a little more critically and a little more logically. Because when we, and it's funny that the people who truly hammer this mechanical approach will say that the pain science approach is like minimalistic, and but if you really look at it, I think it's the exact opposite, and it creates so many more avenues of like what could be driving your pain outside of like, a length tension ratio issue. It's like, what? Okay. But again, why does everyone not have pain? That's in these same things, right? When we create a black and white response, it needs to be 100%. And there's just very few things that are like that. So when we can open someone's mind to just maybe believe that it's not so set in stone, that's like the first foot in the door. It's like, hey, we're not sure what's going on. It could be a bunch of these things, but my go-to is let's just do something, right? So if it's a high-level CrossFitter who's training all the time, let's just do a little bit less. Like, let me help you with your programming. Let me rewrite your training for a little while. If it's a chronic pain patient, super low level, let's just go walk. I got my pup with me all the time. He's super cool. And I'm like, let's go walk the dog today. They're like, they don't walk more than 100 feet because it hurts. And I'm like, let's go walk him. He doesn't pull. Let's just go walk and we'll have a conversation. And we go walk for an hour, and they walk a mile, right? And they haven't walked a mile in years, and it's like, so we find that like, let's just do something and see if the body responds okay. And most people really resonate well with that, because I try and tell them, I'm like, this might not be the perfect prescription, but we're going to learn really quickly what is, and then we're going to let your body and let you kind of decide the track of your treatment. And when we give the power to the patient, which seems to work pretty well.
That's awesome. I want to repeat what you said, because I think it's really powerful. This might not be the perfect prescription, but we're going to find out really quickly what is, and let your body basically teach us what that is. Right. Which one, it puts the power in their hands. Right. And it acknowledges that you might feel a little worse. You might feel a little better. We won't know until we try it. Which kind of hits the objection of, but CJ, you weren't a miracle worker today. Physical therapy didn't work after one visit. I got to go do whatever else. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that, I just want to let people know, like, that's really powerful. What you said, you might not even realize it, because one, like, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've heard these things over and over again from people. And that's so hard to meet these expectations they have coming from all the media that they receive and all the other physicians' visits and stuff that they're getting, the 8 days a week when they're outside of our clinic. Right. What would you say has been, through all these things, through starting your business out of school, through mixing, your cash practice with working with WOD Prep, through, you got your, family, you got your business, you got where you live, like, what's been the most challenging thing about building all of this, or creating what you've created? What's in the last 5 years? What's been that biggest struggle for you?
Family.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's something that that I think I prioritize over everything. I want, a lot of really, really good businessmen are really terrible family people. And if that's someone that's listening, it is what it is, right? Look at some of the most successful men in the world, and women. Usually a lot of them have multiple wives, kids that they don't speak to, and it is what it is, right? I'm not going to judge anyone on that, but I didn't want that, and I wanted that to be a thing. And so I've created this system, and that like allows me to work at home. I'm completely can be 100% homebound if I need to, right? For as long as I need to. I can travel whenever I need to. My wife loves seeing our nephew, right? He's on my phone, and he's my little buddy. And so I want to be able to prioritize that over everything. And it's tough sometimes, but it's definitely been the hardest. Business is, you can always put more hours into business, right? But it's hard to create more time for family. And so I try to make sure that that's the main focus. I want to spend, I eat dinner with my wife every night, no phones at the dinner table. We watch our shows or whatever. We spend times on the weekend. I don't work on Sundays. Well, I do work on Sundays, but I try not to as hard as I can. I try and be, off of all media and by 10, which is kind of late for those, but we don't go to bed till a little bit later. And, so I that's been the hardest for sure, is like maintaining a good life, or at least that's been my number one focus. Was like, that's the number one priority. And I think it makes business a little bit harder, it's like, I talk to some of my friends and, and like, oh, I did this, and this. And I'm like, did you spend time with your girlfriend or wife? And like, no. I'm like, oh, well, and that's like so that makes it tough for sure. But it is probably my number one priority, and probably the biggest struggle that I have is like maintaining a really good relationship there. And because it's what I prioritize the most, not because we don't have a good relationship, we have a great relationship, but it's what I always want to continue to grow.
Yeah,
that's my number one focus.
Do you guys travel a lot, or is it more like doing things at home?
Insane amounts of travel, but a lot of it's work driven, or we go see family. And so with that, we're able to travel together. But I do travel alone a good bit. But when the really fun trips come, when I go across country or out of the country, she gets to come with me, and that's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Super fortunate for that. And yeah, whenever she wants to come, she can. Most of the time she doesn't, because it's just CrossFit. She's not really into CrossFit. So, it is what it is. So, but she can, for every single one of my trips, she can come. which
Yeah.
is a good opportunity to have. And even when I do travel, I don't lose a lot of revenue. I'm still working the entire time.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
Did you
it's nice.
track how much you traveled last year with
Um,
like even just family?
Probably out of town for somewhere of the north of 3 to 4 months,
Mm-hmm.
like gone, like actual, like over 100 days
Yeah, that's
for
awesome. How
sure,
much time
at
with your
least.
wife on those trips? Like, do you know?
So, probably a third to a half of it, something like
Yeah.
that. Because a
Yeah.
lot of those were Texas. We see, like I said, we see our nephew and her
Yeah.
sister. And we spent a lot of time there. Our niece was born, and then we were there for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So that was like 5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Like just like that.
Yeah. That's cool.
And
So,
so it was a lot.
yeah. So when you travel, are you like, you have like your couple hours in the morning or evening where you're working and the rest of the time it's
Yeah,
like
usually
chill?
usually I train in the morning before everyone gets up. I go to a gym there that's good friends of mine, and then we hang out and do whatever, and then I start work super super late.
Yeah.
So very little sleep because I want to spend all the time with my niece and nephew and the fam, and so I'll stay up really late,
Yeah.
and you just get it done. But I can, and that's the best part about it. Are those hours really crazy? Yeah, I mean sometimes like we traveled during the CrossFit Open this year, and that was the worst fucking thing ever. I'll never travel during the Open again. That was terrible to like find a gym in another city that was going to let me shoot till midnight of
Right.
like content creation and video editing and things like that. And then get home because it was like across Dallas, and then had to get home, and then I had to program for all 30 of my athletes. So I was up till like 6 in the morning, and then I just like slept for, 12 hours but their family's really understanding.
Yeah.
But there's no, during that time, that's like our season, because
Right.
that's what we do, content creation, and pump out as much information as we can and help as much as we can.
Yeah. So
So
next year, is that from Pensacola and travel the rest of the
100%, we're not traveling during that, but they're moving here. Family is moving to town, which is, we
Oh,
are
wow.
so excited for, and
That's really awesome.
really excited they're going to be here. So that's going to be great. So travel is going to cut down a good bit. Hopefully all just a little bit more play travel. We don't do a
Yeah.
lot of like purely like just me and my wife, like
Mm-hmm.
vacation travel, which kind of stinks. I want to try and do some more of that maybe next year. This year, I don't know what the summer's going to look like. Revenue
Right.
might be down a little bit, obviously. And so we're going to kind of try and not plan anything till we know what the backside of COVID looks like.
Yeah. Is there one place that you haven't been that you want to go?
Oh, everywhere. I want to travel so bad. No, that's the whole body. So, I would say the next is probably some, I go to Denver for work, but I don't ever get to go to experience it, but we'll probably get out there. And I think she wants to go to Steamboat. So that's probably where we'll go next.
Yeah. That's
really
cool.
nice up
Yeah.
there.
It's
So
beautiful
maybe
out there.
next winter we'll go out there and do that. That's probably on the docket.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, we're about out of time. My last question for you is, if someone's listening who was in your shoes 5 years ago, or is trying to get this thing off the ground, whether it's a clinic or doing like the kind of coaching stuff that you're doing just in business, what's your number one piece of advice, or what would you have needed to hear differently, or that resonated with you 5 years ago that you think you'd pass on to somebody else?
Well, I think G has been a big influence, and whoever's listening to this and let's talk to him, whatever idea you have is a great idea. And he helps you kind of guide it. So get a mentor, and it's okay. It's okay to spend money on yourself to better yourself. That's fine. You don't need a big overhead, right? So let's talk about business, right? So
Mm-hmm.
get a mentor, spend money on yourself to grow your mindset, your business mindset. Don't worry about your professional skills. If we're talking PT specifically, I don't think that's a good place to spend money. As far as like extra certifications and things, unless that's something you're really, really set on, that's what you want to do is like a long-term thing, not just a tool for your toolbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're wanting to direct a whole practice model based on something, then that's different. Don't take out loans for business, run it as a cash in hand business. I don't think it's necessary. I think you can grow cash businesses into insurance accepting businesses very easily. And be okay making college money for a little while longer. Right. And I think those are like the biggest ones. It's okay it will change. And one thing that I read early on. I read a lot of Tim Ferriss, right? Super motivator, right?
Yeah.
And I read the 4 Hour Work Week, which I didn't think was that great of a book. But one thing that resonated with me really well in it, because I don't think it applies to anything but sales, but that's a side note, was that establishing what's the worst that could happen when you take the leap. And for us as physical therapists that want to do our own thing, the worst that happens is you go do what you were going to do if you weren't going to take the leap, which is still make whatever money that is. And that's a pretty good fail plan, right? To go make whatever it is, 60, 70, 80 grand, whatever that is. It could be worse, right? Now, if you take out a huge loan, now we're talking something different, right? You spend an excessive amount of money, or, you come out and you try and live a lavish life and you're only making, you see 10 patients a week, might not be okay then, right? So don't bite off more than you can chew. I think that's really, really important, but it's okay to take the risk early. And that's probably the last piece of advice. That's why I tell everyone, you'll never have less debt, less responsibilities than you do right this second, right out of school. Even though you might be $200,000 in debt, it won't be less. You won't have more bills, or you won't have any less bills than the second you leave school. All right. And with that, it's the time to start. It's always now, right? What is it? There's like the tree analogy. Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago or today or something like that. Right. So, 100%. Right. So, and that's really, really important. And it's okay to be scared and to not know anything, it's fine. You'll figure it out. So yeah, those are my.
Awesome, man. Dude, I really appreciate that. CJ, if someone wants to reach out to you, whether it's for remote coaching or just to check out what you're doing, where do they find you on social media and website?
Yeah, Movement Doctor, everything. The movementdoctor.net, Instagram.com/the_movement_doctor, Facebook, The Movement Doctor. I think I have a Twitter. I don't know if I use it though. And all of our stuff, if you're looking for one-on-one coaching or programming, or you're, a CrossFit athlete, rehab, looking for something remote, someone that kind of understands what you're going through, I head over to WODRep.com and look at our one-on-one coaching experience. So that's where you'll find all of the one-on-one stuff, or you can just reach out to me and then we'll point you in the right direction and get you set up with a call. But yeah, that's kind of, that's pretty much it.
Dude, man, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate your time. It's been great getting to know you, and dude, I'm stoked for everything that you're doing. So keep crushing.
Thanks, man.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this is the CashPT Lunch Hour with Aaron LeBauer and CJ Depalma. There's no better time to start than now. So just go take the leap. See you guys on the next episode.